All right, discussion letter E. We're going to talk about your personal projects. This is the first moment we've talked about this. We're going to do a couple personal projects this semester. You're going to be creating a video and talking to us. And it's not just about the video, it's also about the information. It's about how you present the information, about the way that you come across, the way that you sit up. I'm looking at mine right now. It's the way that you sit up your background, the way that you, like we talked about, I think last week, we moved from staring at ourselves to engaging the camera. So it's going to be about the audio video and about the medium of video. But for this one, I want to talk to you about the actual words, your topics. Again, it's the first time we've talked about this. Those of y'all that have looked at the syllabi and gone through it, you've seen that in there. And I want to talk to you about topics and get you moving in the right direction. It's a personal project. It's up to you, and this is your direction. For those of y'all that have already seen Lecture E, we talked about Dance Monkey Dance. Just tell me what to do to get the 50 points or to get the 100 points, and I'll do it. This is not that assignment. This is not me just telling you exactly what to do. We'll have a rubric. We'll talk about that next week. We'll have parameters. We'll have a alleyway or a roadway. We talked about this before, and you can drive down this any way you want to. There'll be some boundaries. You're not going to talk for 30 minutes. I'm going to ask you one boundary. Don't go beyond 30 minutes. The other one is don't be less than, I don't know the actual number, but there's going to be a minimum and a maximum, sure. But the topic, that's your choice. There's a word we don't use very often, germane. And I want you to think about that jump that we did in Lecture 5, that onus or responsibility, onus being the weight or the responsibility, the burden for you to take charge of your own life, your career, to walk through all that stuff that we talked about in Lecture 5. And I want you to find one area and explore it. I'm going to give you some suggested topics, but this class is business communication, professional communication, communicating in the work environment. I am, as we talked about in weeks 1, 2, and I think 3, very aware that this is not about stomping up and down the hallways at city cards, carrying a briefcase and shaking hands with the brass. Careers a lot of times nowadays are sitting on a laptop on your couch and working 4 or 5 hours a day and then returning emails and doing 2 Zoom calls and being done. I have a friend right now that makes, I think, in the low 400s a year. Be nice, wouldn't it? He makes a lot of money, does very well for himself, and he 100% works on the couch with a laptop. And he interacts all day with people, and he does very well for himself, very, very well. I think there's 5 people in the country within what he does, about 5 people in the country that can do what he does, and he's compensated very well for that. He's in his 40s. He's worked very hard for this job, but what applies to him is very different than what maybe applied to my father. My father was a civil engineer, is a civil engineer for the U.S. Forest Service. So he works with some rangers and firefighters, with road builders. He works with all these different departments, public relations and the campground people. So it's all about the National Forest. There's a lot that goes on there. And he's an engineer, and so he builds things and designs things and does surveying, and he has to interact all the time. And usually when he's interacting, he's wearing a pair of logging boots and standing on the side of a fire road up in the mountains talking to the worker guys, the graders or the bulldozers, or I don't know, the guys that are doing, if he decides to build a road up the side of a mountain and Dad engineers it, his job is to interact with all of these guys. My point is this: everybody's work environment's really, really different. And I want to be very aware of that and have that inform this project. So in light of your goals, my daughter is preparing to be an early elementary school educator. She's going to be dealing with parents, administration, and a whole lot of kids. She's going to be dealing with other teachers, dealing with a school system, dealing with the PE time, dealing with the weather, dealing with if there's a snow day, how do we work through that? We have the state of Tennessee dealing with us or putting pressure on us on test scores and all of this, and you juggle all of these balls, and You make sure that Kylie has her lunch because she forgot her lunch today, and you're dealing with Rylan, and Rylan's having a sad day, and you're dealing with his emotions, and so had a success, and they wanted to show their trophy. You're dealing with all this. It's different than being at City Cards shaking hands, or my dad on the side of a road, or my buddy sitting on his couch. He's sitting on his couch right now during business hours with his laptop. I want you to think about your own careers. And in light of all that, have all of that inform this project. Now, this project is a personal project, and your job is to find one subject that applies to us in business communication, professional communication, this, soft skills, and talk about it. You're going to explore it. You're going to research it. Take something you're interested in, help us be interested in it, and then present it in a way that other people are like, heck yeah, I learned something for that. It's a little bit informative presentation. It's also a little bit instructional. You're going to teach us something. You're also going to share with us your journey, share with us how you grew and how you expanded, what you learned, and you present it to us. It's also another opportunity for you to practice the video medium and practice doing what I'm doing right now, delivering something naturally that you prepared. And you're going to think about all this audio video stuff as well. I'm now going to give you some personal project sample subjects, sample topics that I've had in previous semesters, and I've seen all of these done successfully. Decorating your workspace. If you have a job and you've got a cubicle or an office, how should you decorate it? Should you bring in a lot of personal stuff? Should you have all of your tchotchkes and your stuff? Or should you be sterile and professional? 2 words, it depends. I think the words it depends apply to all of this. How about decorating yourself? What should you wear to work? Well, it depends. My father wore a uniform, and he bought very expensive boots, and that was part of their culture. They all wore highly expensive, custom-made, they all had custom-made logging boots that were made for them, and you didn't fit in without that. It's different than if you're in the military. That's different than if you're a cop. That's different if you're a nurse. It depends. Swearing at work. Should you frickin' swear? It depends. Socializing with your coworkers. This applies everywhere. Socializing with your coworkers. Should you? How should you? Where should you? What's the keys? What's the guidelines? There's no hard rules. There's no hard rules, but there's pathways and guidelines. That's pretty good. Got to be careful. Should you date coworkers? It's a challenge. A lot of folks will say, no, you absolutely shouldn't. People meet people at work. You have a single soccer dad and a single soccer mom. They're both divorced and just single, ready to mingle. Beautiful story. Get married, they spend 50 years together. It happens. Should you? A lot in that, How about your resume? We talked a little bit about that 2 weeks ago. I'm only halfway through grading those. Resume writing is big. It's really big, and that world has changed. It really has changed. You can explore so much more about that. You could do electronic resumes, and there's a lot of things with like keywords and stuff that matters. Social media, big topic, big topic. The first thing that employers do with potential hires nowadays in white-collar jobs is they go to their social media, and people go, that's creepy, that's stalking. We all do it as they should, so you could go, oh my gosh, I better start deleting stuff. Or you could go, hey, maybe I'm going to be an adult from this point forward and start producing stuff that is very presentable. I have a friend that took this class, and we're now friends. He's in his 30s now. He took this class a long time ago, and his personal social media is all about fly fishing, and he takes pictures of his food and shows pictures of his dogs and his wife. And it's very professional. It has nothing to do with his career, but it's very presentable. And you see that and you're like, heck yeah, I like that guy. He's very likable on social media. Something to think about. How about applying for a job? Rarely these days are you going to get a paper application and fill out name. Well. That's not how it works these days. Explore it. Office chit chat. Holy smokes, this is important. I have had days at Northeast State where I have been forced into conversations for hours of my days. Hours. I've probably had office chit chat for 5 hours. Sometimes during the week after finals, faculty are just on campus 8 to 4:30 all day, 8 to 4:30. And it's the only time of the year where we're just sitting in our offices, and it's nice. It's nice to catch up with people. It's nice to see your coworkers, but holy smokes, dealing with office chit chat can be a challenge. Woof, woof. Office gossip. People gossip. It's part of our culture. Well, you shouldn't gossip. Okay, that's nice to say, but on some level, it's good to be in the know and know what's coming. Hey, the district manager is coming tomorrow. You better get your crap together. And you're like, ugh, I was going to call in sick tomorrow. Maybe I shouldn't. Or I was going to take a paid day off tomorrow and go to the Biltmore with my kids. Maybe I'll skip that. And having that little bit of information, gossip, could be important. Gossip, good or bad, yes or no, something to think about. How about the communication grapevine? There's a grapevine of communication. On paper, in organizational communication, you've got the cheese, you've got the vice presidents, you've got their managers, you have their middle managers, and you have their departments. And all information should flow downhill. But that's not how it actually works. The grapevine goes from here to the boss's secretary, and then the secretary tells one of her best friends that's across the office in another department, and then she tells her supervisor, and she is golfing buddies with this dude across, and he goes, doo, 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 golfing buddy. On our campus, I end up hearing about stuff that I shouldn't know about. I knew years ago, this one hurts me. It just popped in my brain, and I think it's interesting, but it was a bad day at Northeast. I knew that a friend of mine was going to get fired before he knew it. And I knew that morning, and he got fired that afternoon. And I didn't see him in between, but that's called the grapevine or organizational communication. It's interesting. Isn't that interesting? Should you do all that? Should you be in the know? People that are in the know, they move up. People that are not in the know, they stay lateral. They don't move up. Religion and politics. Woof. Relationship with your supervisor. Should you hang out with your supervisor? Should you be able to shut the door and have a conversation with them that's personal? Should you go out and hang out with them outside of work? And for all of this is important. I'm not talking about your job. I've had students that do this project and they talk about their relationship with their supervisor at Food City. That doesn't apply here. We're talking about a career. Nothing wrong with working at Food City. But I'm talking about a career. I've had students go, oh my God, I hang out with my supervisor all the time. We are the best friends. We're getting tattoos together. That's fine. Where do you work? Food City. How old's your supervisor? She's 20. Okay, y'all are essentially the same age, and she's a friend, and that's really cool. I got no problem with that. Job. That's a job. I'm talking about your career. Should you hang out with if your supervisor shows up at a get-together, should you drink if they're there? I have opinions on that. How about drinking? That was the next one. Drinking at work or drinking at work? It depends. Should you drink at work? Well, it depends. Are you a bouncer at a bar? I have friends that drink at work all the time. I have a friend that does very well, and he gets paid to drink at work. He is a intermediary. He's the top of this company in sales, the top sales guy, and he has to talk to the top of this company, the actual talk. And the way they do it is they go out and they do fun stuff. He'll call a company and say, hey, do you want to go hunting? I'm going to have a 2-day hunting spree. Let's go hunt. He took some guys four-wheeling one time, and they just go spend money, and they talk. It's sales meetings, and they'll spend a couple days. He took a bunch of guys to NASCAR, to the Daytona 500 recently, and they get a luxury box, or he'll go to sports games, and they drink. They have their beers. Some of them, they party. They actually party, and my buddy does very, very well for himself. He is 100% a professional at what he does, and part of what he does is drink with clients. How much should he drink? Should he get poop-faced? Excuse the language. That's a challenge. So I meant to say drinking after work, but even that's really interesting, isn't that? That sometimes you do drink at work. It's interesting. My buddy makes money drinking, and I one time told him, I said, dude, you are a professional partier. You get paid to party with clients. He said, I've never thought about that, but yeah. He took a group out to shoot machine guns. Bob, 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 bob. in Las Vegas one time. Took like 13 guys out. They had a blast, and they ended up making money, and the companies ended up doing very well together. But how about drinking after work? Should you drink with your coworkers? Should you talk about it? Should you talk about it? I had to shut a speech down on main campus the other day because I had a student in class giving a speech, and he was talking about his partying. Oh my God. And he's a minor, and he was with a group of minors, and this was not his job. And I had to stop in the middle of his speech. I had to say, hey, brother, can you talk about something that's not illegal? How about that? So just talking about drinking, it's an interesting topic, isn't it? Isn't it? Cell phones at work. Woof. That's a conversation right there. How about working at home? How should you look? How should you act? Should you have your kids, their heads walk through the camera? It's a lot to talk about. So I want you to pick a topic. That's some samples. There's a lot more. Did you see how on a couple of those I got excited and they start unfolding and unraveling, unpacking, blossoming or blooming? There's a lot in there. I'm not talking about here's 7 keys for where you're making these hard rules, but you can do guidelines. Hey, here's some guidelines. Here's what I found out. Here's what I talked about and why. For this project, 4 questions. 1, pick a topic. 2, why? Talk to us about why you picked that topic. And you can't slam this out. Like I said in lecture 5, you cannot slam this out in 7 minutes. You better think about this one. You better, because this is going to be a couple week project and it's going to be a big, big video. It's going to be a big one. So your topic, why? Number 2, why? 3, this is different. What's your goal? My goal is to talk to you about, I want to talk about drinking at work. And my goal is to cause you to think, to give you some guidelines, to help inform you how to make your own decisions, to tell some stories. And my goal is also, number 5, to have fun. I always put fun when I think about the goals of my presentations if I was doing a project like this. So I would also say to have fun or to be informative and to be enjoyable. Or you could say, I want to practice this medium. You could have one of the goals just be you working on this. I don't care. Your topic, why, your goal, and then I want you to find 3 credible sources. I would rather them not be jurored or peer reviewed. I don't want the Communication Journal of Southeast Appalachia. Find real sources, not Wikipedia, not Quora, not ask.com or how.com, not, my favorite TikToker said this. I'm talking about credible sources. I think it's written response, the lady with the dark hair that spoke in that video this week, she's fantastic. Rayner is her last name, Raynier. She's a great source. She's got 25 million hits on that video. It's a great source. It's a really good source. So find 3 good sources and tell us what they are. I don't need a bibliography. I don't want a bibliography. Here's the date and here's the thing. Underline, italics. This is not an APA format or MLA format. Just tell us who it is, what's the name of the article and who wrote it and where did it come from. Newsweek. My first source is from Ryan Cantor. He's an author in Newsweek from April of 2021 edition, and here's the article. So tell us, but you don't have to do it in bibliography, but it needs to be the title, the date, and tell us where and how we can find it, and don't just post a link. Links are lame. Post more. Tell us who it is. Tell us who it is. Don't just post some random link. So we can look at that and just go through without having to click it and jump somewhere else. You may want to put the link in there, that's fine. But I want to know who, what, think. The reason I do that is I want you to think about the source, the author, and the title of their work. Rather than, here's a link. I got this from the bottom of Wikipedia. Your topic, why, the goal, 4 credible. This is hard to do. 3 credible sources is the 4th question. I'll do it again just to be super clear. 4 questions. Your topic, why, your goal, and then tell us 3 credible sources, but do more than a link and don't just say National Geographic. I don't know. There's a gazillion articles on there. It's 4 questions. And then finally, it's a discussion. You know the drill at this point. Discuss with 5 students, 5 other students, a minimum. Yeah, a minimum. That's a minimum. But jump in there, talk to them about their projects. This is a great way for you all to start aiming towards your personal project. It's going to be a big project, and getting the topic and knowing the why is going to be huge for you. Can't wait to see what y'all come up with.